right, welcome back. Today we're taking our weekly deep dive into the Colombo Stock Exchange, breaking down everything that happened from March 16th to the 20th. So, what was the big story this week? Let's get into it. Okay, so let's just rip the Band-Aid off right away. It was, well, a tough week for the market. You can see right here, both of our main indices took a pretty big hit. The ASPI, wow, it dropped about 1,000 points. And the S&P SL20, the one that follows our top 20 heavy hitters, it also fell, slipping below that 6,000 mark. So yeah, no two ways about it, it was a clear downward trend across the board.
So with the overall market down, you gotta ask, did anyone actually have a good week? We're looking at the biggest winners and losers. Even when the whole market's in the red, there are always these fascinating stories of companies that swam against the tide. And of course, those that got pulled under. Let's see who's who. And here we go, our top 5 gainers. See, it wasn't all bad news. Check this out. Palm Garden Hotels leading the pack with a super impressive gain of almost 10%. And look at Softlogic Capital right behind it. This is exactly what I mean. Despite the gloomy overall picture, there were definitely some bright spots. It just goes to show you can't judge every stock by the market's cover.
Okay, now for the other side of that coin, and ouch, some of these losses were pretty steep. I mean, look at ACME. It lost over 1/3 of its value in just 1 week. 1/3. And SMB Finance saw a similar drop. This really puts into perspective the kind of intense pressure some of these individual companies were under.
All right, so looking at individual stocks is like looking at the trees. Now let's zoom out and look at the whole forest. We're taking a deeper look at sectors to figure out which entire industries were strong and which ones were really feeling the pain. And that's the big question, right? Where did all this movement really come from? Was everyone having a bad week, or were just a few key areas dragging everybody else down with them? Let's find out.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. You'd think it would be simple, right? Some sectors up, some down. But look, you've got materials and capital goods showing up on both the gainers and the losers list. What it tells us is that the story was super mixed even within those industries. The one place where things were pretty clear-cut, the energy sector. It looks like they faced some serious headwinds across the board and were a big reason for the market's overall dip.
Now for the week's biggest movers. It's not always about the biggest percentage jump. Some companies are just huge. They're the heavyweights. And when they move even a little bit, they can pull the whole index with them. So let's see which companies had the biggest positive impact on the ASPI this week. And here they are. So even with the whole index falling, these 5 companies were pushing hard in the other direction. And look at Softlogic Capital. Wow, it contributed almost 3.5 points to the ASPI all on its own. I mean, think about that. Without these guys, the week's drop would have been even worse. They were really putting the brakes on the slide. Okay, finally, let's zoom back out one last time and analyze the market's pulse. We know prices went down, but was the market busy? Was it quiet? Let's check out the overall activity levels.
Whoa, look at that number. The total turnover for the week was over 25.2 billion rupees. That's a massive amount of money changing hands. So even though the indices were down, the market was anything but sleepy. People were actively buying and selling. It was a really busy week.
And if you look at the sheer number of shares that were traded, it's almost 1.5 billion. So you take that and the turnover we just saw, and it paints a really clear picture. This was a super active, high-volume week.
This chart here really shows you the rhythm of the week. We kicked things off with a huge day on Monday, right? Nearly 6.6 billion in turnover. Then things cooled off a bit, kind of bounced around, and we hit our low point for the week on Thursday. We did see a little bit of a comeback on Friday, but it's really cool to see how the energy of the market shifted from day to day.
So after all that, what's the big takeaway? Well, the main indices definitely took a tumble. And it looks like the energy sector was a major reason why. But it wasn't all doom and gloom. We saw some real pockets of strength, and that high trading volume tells us investors were paying very close attention. Which leaves us with the million-rupee question. Where do we go from here? Is this just a blip on the radar or the start of something bigger? I guess we'll just have to wait and see what next week brings.